Let's go ahead and start the study session. Jamie? Bob.
Hi, good afternoon. I just wanted to have Patty Montgomery with Schools Cubed present a little bit more deeper information about the work that she's doing with our elementary schools regarding early literacy.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. Let's see, I have a couple of handouts for you, if you don't mind. I'm going to, you can just take them.
Okay.
Patty, what was your last name?
Montgomery.
Montgomery, okay.
Okay,
Okay.
should I get started?
Yes.
So, what does it mean to be cubed? Schools Cubed, what an odd name. But actually our name really describes what it is that we do. We empower schools and districts to create systems and structures and strategies for effective and high-achieving schools.
So in order for our cameras to pick up your voice, you'll have to speak into the phone.
Oh, I never stand still.
I can get you, I can go get you a handheld.
That's okay. I'll work really hard at standing still. I do much better moving.
I have the handheld for you.
There's one.
And actually, no one's ever had a problem hearing me before. I was a middle school principal. I can quiet 700 children. Okay. But schools need a map in order to know what to do. I'll try to remember to use this. And so we've created a framework for schools. And what I have passed out for you is our literacy evaluation tool. You can see it's quite lengthy. It's based on several different domains, is what we call them. And it's based on the latest reading research. And the reason we do this through reading is for two reasons. Number one, it's our moral obligation to make sure all children can read at grade level. Absolutely, we should be offering that to every single student we serve. And then, not only that, when schools are in turnaround, it's based on our state assessments. Every state assessment is a reading measure, whether it's science, math, social studies, or English language arts. We're really measuring the reading ability of students with different problems within them. So by increasing students' reading ability, we kill two birds with one stone. The bigger one, I like to think, is our moral obligation. That evaluation tool is also based on the latest research of highly effective schools. It's most of it is based on the research that they found on the grants and school improvement grants that were given 2010 through 2014-16. And there's actually quite a bit of research that came out on those school improvement grants, and that's the other portion of what is in the rubrics, the evaluation tool. And then there's a portion on collaboration, building leadership teams. And the reason that that portion is in there is because we know that shared decision-making among teachers and the principal is much more effective than a top-down approach from the principal. We know that even in schools that serve high numbers of underserved students, when teachers can collaborate and share in the decision-making process, scores are much higher. Teachers buy in to what they're being asked to do, and there's more trust within schools. So those are the basic domains. The evaluation tool is intended to be used with inside eyes and outside eyes. When you spend a lot of time working diligently in a building, you sometimes think you might be doing better than you are. So we need to make sure that other people are looking at it than just the principal and the classroom teachers. So district personnel, consultants, that sort of thing, need to be establishing where the schools are on the rubric. And we also use it to create an instructional focus. Each of those columns has a score attached to it. And so you'll see in a minute that our schools receive a percentage point for each of those domains. So if we are really low in one particular domain, as an example, universal instruction, which has a huge impact on academic achievement, we want to make sure that that's the area in which we're focusing. So it offers schools a laser-like focus on what it is that they need to be doing. To fully implement this and to get to 90%, 85 to 90% success on this literacy evaluation tool takes 3 to 5 years. It is not a quick turnaround process. And also, this is just, it's not a checklist. It's really implementing the systems and structures that are required to be successful in schools. I'd also like to point out, before we go too much further, that I don't know if you're aware, but our nation's literacy scores have remained stagnant for the past 20 years. Fourth graders nationally and eighth graders, 36% of our fourth grade and eighth grade students are proficient in literacy, and that's been stagnant for the past 20 years. One of the newest pieces of research that says that it's been stagnant is because we have focused on teacher professional development instead of changing the systems and structures that are found within buildings. So it's not just about how the teachers teach, it's also about the data analysis that goes on, it's about the type of assessments that we're using, whether we're using formative assessments, how we're looking at data, the professional development that occurs. All of those things are necessary for increased literacy achievement. So there's our domains: universal instruction, interventions, assessment, database decision-making, professional development, and building leadership teams. When we go into a school, and as we have done in all of your schools, we literally walk with the principal and the instructional coaches and look to see how they are doing in every single one of those domains. And we do that 3 times a year. We want to see progress as the year goes on in each of those areas. One of the another reason that the systems and structures are so important is because, as you all know, there have been lots of reforms and lots of policies added in our state agencies, or state educational agencies. And it makes it difficult to make a clear pathway through all of those, a clear and logical pathway through all of those reform measures, unless we have those high quality systems and structures that are required to implement those policies. Interestingly enough, 75% of principals, this is some national research, 75% of principals find that their job has become too complex and unsatisfying. 75% of our nation's principals, because of the endless paperwork that's being asked of them with all of our policies and reforms. So we like to think of us as principal heroes, our consultants. We go in specifically to help the principals. Again, a lot of professional development has been provided to teachers, and I'm totally for professional development for teachers, but we've left principals out. So instead of a stand and deliver model of professional development, which we do a little bit, we find coaching, working side by side with principals, is much more effective. So when we go in, as I said, we walk with the principal and the instructional coach. We observe the classrooms against those measures that are in the evaluation tool. And then we measure how it's doing against those rubrics, against the research that says what highly effective schools are doing. And then each month after we're there, we leave very clear next steps. If we bombard a principal with too many things, again, we're back to that unsatisfactory feeling of their job, too much paperwork. So we take little steps and hope that they're enacted between visits. We go twice per month. It's usually a back-to-back visit, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We do not go into schools on December and April. There's too much going on. In April, there's national assessments. We were in a few schools the first week of December this year. As I said, we leave a next steps report. I'm going to let you see one of those in just a minute. The next steps reports have clear expectations as to what are to be done the next time. We sit with the principal, the instructional coach, the assistant principal where we can, make sure that they understand the next steps, ask them specifically, what do you think might get in the way? Let's problem solve that, so they know exactly what it is that they need to do. Again, those next steps are working towards not only ensuring that research-based instructional strategies are going on in every classroom, but also to make sure that we have those cohesive systems and structures that are used in highly effective schools. We also want to make sure that those research-based reading strategies are occurring every single day in every single classroom. We progress monitor not only how the students are doing, but also how the schools are doing, working towards those instructional goals. And then, of course, always with the end goal in mind that we want to increase reading scores. I'm going to give you, here is a, this is a next steps report, if you could take one. This is, that is an actual report. I've changed the name, and it is not from one of your schools. It's from a different state, but it is an actual next steps report that measures against the domain. You'll see in the upper left-hand side, I believe it starts off with universal instruction. That happens to be a school that I've worked with for 2 years. So their universal instruction score is a little higher. So it says what the end result is, and then what the specific next steps are that they need to be doing in each of the domains. Every time we visit, we open up the last next steps report, ask them if they've been able to implement all those things, let them know we're going to be checking on them, ask them what concerns have come up, and that sort of thing. So that's how we start then our next observation. I'm going to give you a minute to look that over in case you have some questions.
So is there an outcome that's associated with, I guess, what you call the evidence? You know, you have instructional practices, data-based decision-making, and so forth. And, you know, if they're successful or partially successful in terms of the collaboration and instructional practices, that presumably would result in improvement in reading scores.
Absolutely.
And is that, but I don't see any data on reading scores.
There's a section on how they use data, and then we just continually check the achievement. I can tell you that there is a large correlation between the scores on the evaluation rubric not moving and reading scores not moving. In other words, we do see a direct correlation when we start to put in those systems, we start to put in those reading strategies, invariably reading scores come up. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah, so it's just
So
that.
on this one, we're just measuring how they're doing with those systems and structures.
Right.
And then we measure reading achievement by the assessments and state outcome
Right.
assessments that we're doing.
So when you do the walkthroughs, how much time does it take you to do the walkthroughs? Because I know I've been in the schools when people have done walkthroughs, and it's like they go in for 5-10 minutes and go on to the next one. And to me, it seems like it would kind of be a little hard to get all the data you need
So
to
that's a
really
good
see.
question. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, just to really see where the children are, where they're going, and the next time to see if they've improved, and if they haven't,
Yeah.
what does the teacher do? And are they documenting this on the system or on paper?
So let me
Okay.
see if I can remember all of those. So when we go in, we do spend approximately 8 to 10 minutes. We found that we can get a good snapshot of that. However, many times we go back. As an example, I was in a classroom today, and I didn't get to see the beginning of the classroom. So I'm scheduling the beginning of the lesson for the next time. So we do want to get a full picture. The other nice thing that we take along with us is because they now have Super Kids, the reading curriculum, there's a portal, an administrator and a teacher portal. So as we go into a classroom, we pull up the portal. We can tell exactly what lesson they're on, what week they're on, and we can read through the lesson as we're observing the lesson. So we know if they're hitting all of the important content as we're observing. So that's very helpful. The other thing that we do when we go into a lesson or a classroom is we can pull up the data. We can pull up the DIBELS data that's associated with that classroom, associated with the progress monitoring. So if we're looking at the progress monitoring, which we often do when we're in there, if they have 3 red dots, which the progress monitoring would show you, then we can say, oh, something's going on with an intervention. We immediately key into, let's go check to see what's going on in that small group instruction to make sure that child is getting exactly what they need. So the instruments that we have allow us to get very prescriptive to see literally what every child needs to be doing as we observe. And we do it on a computer so that we have all of the notes available.
Okay, if they're not meeting the 3 dots or they have the 3 dots, what do? Do you take the teacher aside and have a talk with that teacher and let them know, why is this student, or maybe you should be doing this? Are you evaluating them and helping them?
Yes. Yes, and what we do is we work with the principal and the instructional coach mostly, instead of, many times we've worked with the teacher, but remember, we're trying to build capacity. So we also want to make sure the instructional coach and the principal knows exactly what that teacher needs to be doing. So in that case, often teachers don't know what they're not doing. It's not to blame the teachers at all. So I'm going to give you a first grade example. If I go, one of the sub-skills on DIBELS is something called nonsense word fluency. And it literally measures whether a child can decode a word, put the sounds and letters together and tell you what the word is. So if a child has 3, and we progress monitor a child on that, if he has 3 stagnant or continually red progress monitoring marks, the teacher may not have him in the right intervention, and she just didn't know that he needed decoding. So we simply say, let's try a decodable text on the skill that you're teaching him right now. So as an example, he might have trouble learning how to read cat, the word cat. Well, that requires knowing the letter sounds of C, A, and T. Has she gone back and looked in the assessments to make sure that they know all of those sounds and letters? So yes, we do go back, we make sure the teacher knows, we make sure the instructional coach knows, and that the principal can provide feedback. Because ultimately, it's the principal's job to provide feedback to the teachers. Great question.
Ms. Montgomery, you may have mentioned it at the outset, but I perhaps didn't catch it. Have we been using School Cube program right along, and this is just an update you're giving us, or is this something that Adams 14 is embarking upon?
You have used me since August.
Since
Yes,
August.
We
Okay,
did
so
a training in July for principals, assistant principals, and instructional coaches, and then our initial visits where we graded everyone on each of the domains was actually in September, was our first month in the school. So we've been in September, October, November, and a little in December. So just 4 months.
Okay, and this may be a question for maybe the staff rather than for you. What is this, you may not know, but the CUBE program is replacing something else, or is this supplementing what we've been doing, or why has Adams 14 felt this was a good thing to do?
And I don't know if that is
So-
my...
I know with our previous executive director in instruction, it was identified that we lacked systems and structures around effective literacy programming. And so I believe Ms. Burgos had found you at the reading conference that...
No, it's actually an interesting story.
Well, that's a good story. And I'll let you tell that story, but I know that Ms. Burgos was the one that made the connection with our district to Schools Cubed based on some of the data that we were seeing and the root causes we had identified.
Okay, thanks.
So the way she found me was she had, I'm an author of a book, and she had used the book with principals in another district that she was in and had seen success with them, and one day was a bit frustrated in how things were going and picked up my book and just opened the back cover and saw that I was local and immediately called. So that is how she found me.
Okay, thanks.
Does this School Cube, in the process, do they teach phonics with it?
Yes. Yes.
I'm very phonics.
You what?
I love phonics.
Thank you.
So-
I do too.
And I think that's one of our, I'm not a professional, but I believe it's one of our children's shortcomings,
I
is
do
they
too.
need more phonics, how to,
Yes. We strongly believe that phonics has to be a big part of literacy instruction.
and does it work along with BT?
BT,
I mean, kind of the same going-ons?
Yes, we use BT in the schools that we are, absolutely, we work alongside that. Yes?
So it's an enhancement.
Yes. Other questions? Okay, I'll keep going. Any questions on the next steps report? Any other questions? Great questions, you guys. Okay. So, you know what, this says 150, and I double-checked, we've actually been in over 400 classrooms in the 4 months. And so those are 8 to 10-minute visits, but it's also going back, rechecking, things like that. So we feel like we get a really good look at what is going on in every single classroom. So we're at the midpoint. This month, we will be doing the evaluation on the rubric again to see how they're coming along, seeing how those systems and structures are going. We've also begun implementing a new reading curriculum in K2, Super Kids. I think it's going well. I was in some classrooms today, and I think the teachers are enjoying it. Every teacher that I've talked to has said that they really like it. And we also today had trainings on interventions so that every child who's below in reading gets a highly effective research-based intervention. So that will start as well.
What is the average growth you see in, let's say, the kinder and the first, or pre-kinder first?
For an intervention or?
Or just to see if they're picking up on it, and those that have picked up on it, have they shown any growth? Do you get the data?
The DIBELS data is
Shows that?
pretty, the growth report isn't like our CMAS or Access. So the growth in the DIBELS, it will say like adequate growth above or below, and it's by individual student, so it doesn't give us a collective score like we would have for CMAS where you have a 50 or a 60. And so I've been trying to work to break down the numbers so we know per school, per grade, how many students are falling into the above growth category, how many are at typical growth and below, so we have a better understanding of what's going on at each school. And so that's kind of how the DIBELS is reported out.
And we can do that, as Jamie said, by classroom to see how effective a particular classroom is, how much growth a particular student has spent. So, and as I said, teachers just received training on interventions so that we can move those kids. And honestly, for an intervention, I would expect to see 1.5 years growth for kids that are in interventions. That's what I'm hoping to see, and I know that can occur.
So you've been doing this for 4 months, did you say, with us? So by the end of the school year, we should be able to see if there's any growth in the kids?
Yes, we should. Yeah. Remember, it takes 3 to 5 years.
Right.
It really does take 3 to 5 years. I will tell you honestly that I will say that we've had a slower rate of change than what I'd like to see. It's been slow. It honestly has been slower than what I'd like. Some schools obviously are doing better, have embraced it more than others. We're not seeing a huge difference in our reading scores yet. So,
What would you say are the main reasons that you haven't seen the growth that you had initially had anticipated?
Can you start the beginning of that again?
Sure. Well, what are the main reasons for not having achieved the growth that you initially had anticipated?
yeah, I'm gonna go to the next slide because I think it's on here. I don't know if you can see this number, but this is exactly it. Right here, when we went to the domain, there's two areas on that domain. One is universal instruction, quality instruction. What kind of instruction are our teachers giving? We have a score of 18%. That's remarkably low. What I find, I will be quite frank, when I walk into classrooms, is that we have too many teachers that don't know research-based instructional strategies. One of the most effective instructional strategies is something called explicit instruction. And I won't get too technical, but it has an effect size of between 0.56 and 0.78. We want something to have an effect size of at least 0.40. That is 1 year's growth. But no one, that was an overstatement. Not many teachers are teaching explicitly. They just don't know how. And it's something that we're working on instructional coaches with. It's something that we're working on the principals with. The other quite alarming score that we have right here is interventions, 20%. We need to have high quality research-based interventions. We haven't to this point. As I said, they received training on it today. You purchased interventions. And so I believe that will change too. How much of a dent is it going to make between now and May? I'm not sure. There are pockets. In fact, I'll just point out Central Elementary. The kindergarten class, all of the kindergarten, in fact, I think Dina's going to share this later on tonight. We have very few children in what we call the red zone. I mean, they have made tremendous growth, tremendous. And when you look at their data between this year, where they are at the middle of the year, and last year, you will be amazed. And it can be done at every school. But Central is one that has embraced the suggestions that we have provided for them. So it really does depend on how willing principals, instructional leaders are to embrace the suggestions. So.
And they've had basically, the staff, they've had pretty much the 4 months training.
Yeah, the only training that we provided was a 2-day training to principals, instructional coaches, and assistant principals during the summer. The teachers directly did not receive instruction on how children learn to read. They have Adams 14. You have instituted something called Foley training, which is on the foundations of literacy instruction. And you've had that in effect, I believe, the last 2 years. And so some of your teachers have had that opportunity to take that. Those are probably the teachers that we see as being more effective. So,
excuse me, so 92% of the teachers of universal instructions do, I'll take that back, 82% does not have the university instruction. 80% does not have the intervention of instruction. And you finna talked about the assessment, so I'm assuming 57% doesn't have that part.
Is it?
And, school leadership teams, we finna talk about 82% of that don't have that part. And the professional development, we finna talk about that, so 77% of that, they don't have that. And data-based decision-making, I believe that's about 67%, 68%. So, thank you.
and I do want to acknowledge something from the district. you'll notice that your highest score is in assessments. And I will tell you, that's because you have a good plan in place that your district level people put into place. It's not something that the schools did on their own. Some of them have enhanced that, but that is due to your district people. I just want to point that out. So
So if we gotta get these, what is your suggestion that we should do to get our teachers up there so they're qualified to do this type of teaching, this high quality or whatever, universal instructions?
I have a few suggestions, and also, I think it's important that we know we can now take measurements on how universities are preparing our teachers. And so I don't want anyone to walk away thinking this is an Adams 14 problem that they failed, that it's, we're not doing a good job nationally of training our teachers in how to instruct. I know that sounds ridiculous, but we have evidence that supports that. I believe that for the least amount of interruption, you do need something like a summer teacher academy, where we go through the basics of what is good quality instruction. What does it look like? How do children learn to read? How do we analyze our assessments and look at those sub-skills so then we know what we should be teaching them? I'm sorry, I always forget to use my microphone. That's how I think you get it done. Then it's less interruption to kids, to families, that sort of thing.
Yes, I understand going to these academies and all this, going to summer school on this, but that doesn't solve our problem right now. Our problem is how can we get these teachers to do a better job if it means for us that we have to have more PDs, and let it be so. So I just want to know what the board has to do to make sure that our teachers are highly qualified to teach so we can get where we're supposed to be.
Other than offer summer academies, at where I was previously, we also created something called actually Alameda University. And so we got together and did after-school 2-hour sessions on different topics related to literacy instruction. It was voluntary, but we paid the teachers to attend. So that, and we also encouraged paraprofessionals to go so that they could become a part of that. We've done Saturday institutes where they came and received professional development. I mean, there's lots of different things we can do. I will tell you that we know from research that the most effective professional development is literally when we sit down with a teacher, an instructional coach, or 2 teachers, or the principal and 2 teachers, and say, okay, what is our data telling us? If we're back to letter naming, and our kids didn't do well in letter naming, well, what are some strategies that we could use so that in-house job-embedded data analysis we know is highly effective. It's more effective than stand and deliver PD, where we're just yucky teachers.
Yeah.
We just don't absorb it until we do it, until we look at the data and know what adjustments we need to make. So that's another very effective way to get the teachers the knowledge, and that is what we're providing them when we're in schools. We teach the instructional coach and the principal, okay, let's look at the data. What do the teachers need to be doing? The harder, I think, point is everyone has to be willing to receive professional development. That's a bit trickier. Everybody has to be open to it and see that this is making progress. So,
Thank you.
I think I have.
Yeah, because we're on
You're out of time.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
But-
can I just show you this?
Okay.
This is the last slide. A principal, a highly effective principal increases student achievement by between 2 and 7 months. 2 and 7 months. So we need to make sure our principals are highly effective. And then I'm done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that will end our study session, and,
May I
right,
just,
go ahead, Don.
is it okay if I just make a comment? I just want to thank
Yes.
Ms. Montgomery. Thank you for coming, because what I had told the board before, it was very important that beyond textbooks, just laid the foundation on what we teach and when we teach it. And I had mentioned before, now we're getting to the how And that is probably the most difficult part for anyone in the United States, because we all know what to teach, but how to do it the correct way so kids get it, and interventions are a very important component. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say, we had this presentation, we know what one of the problems is. We've been asking as a board, we know what the problem is, give us a solution. Ms. Montgomery has just given us some solutions, and I want to make sure that we follow through in doing some of these if we're going to succeed.
Well, that's why I was kind of asking about how soon do they know, and if we need to implement more teacher training, we need to do that, because I agree with her. Not everybody jumps on board when you bring in something different, so I do agree, and I think maybe we should have some more of this training. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So right now, I would like to, I believe we need to do a special meeting with the lawyer right now. Monica, do I need to do
Executive session.
a roll call on this?
Yeah, you need to,
Make a motion?
there needs to be a motion and
To go
Okay.
a vote.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to move into the special meeting with the attorney, Jonathan Farrow. May I have a
You have to read the citation.
Under
Citation.
Oh, yes, it is CRS 24-6-402, parentheses 4, parentheses B, legal advice, board to conference with the attorney for purpose of receiving legal advice on a specific matter. May I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I move that we go to executive session under CRS 24-6-402-4B for legal advice.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have roll call?
Dr. Hyde,
Aye.
Mr. Moreno,
Aye.
Mrs. Quintana,
Aye.
Mr. Rolla,
Aye.
Mr. Thomas.
Aye.